Obama attacked Trump's immigration policies until Trump played Obama's own speeches from 2005. What happened next shocked every journalist in the room. The CNN Politics Forum at George Washington University was supposed to be a routine discussion on immigration reform. Former President Barack Obama sat across from Donald Trump, both men positioned at mahogany podiums under the bright studio lights. The moderator, Anderson Cooper, had barely introduced the topic when Obama leaned forward with that familiar presidential composure. "Donald's approach to immigration has been nothing short of cruel and divisive," Obama began, his voice carrying that measured cadence that had once commanded the Oval Office. "Separating families, building walls, creating fear. This isn't who we are as Americans. We're a nation of immigrants built on compassion and hope." The audience of political journalists and Georgetown University students nodded approvingly. Obama's voice gained strength as he continued his moral lecture. "When I see children in cages, when I see families torn apart at our borders, when I see the rhetoric of hatred being used to describe human beings seeking refuge, this breaks my heart. Real immigration policy requires nuance, humanity, and understanding that these are people seeking better lives. My administration always approached this with dignity and respect for human rights." Obama gestured toward Trump with barely concealed disgust. "Donald talks about invasion and criminals when describing asylum seekers. He talks about building walls and mass deportations. This language dehumanizes people. During my presidency, we focused on comprehensive reform, on bringing people out of the shadows with dignity." Trump sat silently during the 7-minute moral lecture, his expression unreadable. His hands remained folded on the podium as Obama continued his attack. "We prioritized keeping families together. We recognized that America's strength comes from our diversity, from our willingness to welcome those seeking the American dream. What we've seen in recent years is a betrayal of these fundamental American values." When Obama finally finished, expecting applause, Trump simply reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small recording device. The gesture was so casual, so confident, that it immediately changed the energy in the room. "That's interesting, Barack," Trump said, his voice calm but carrying an unmistakable edge. "Because I have something here that might surprise people. Actually, it might surprise you too." He placed the device on his podium with deliberate precision and pressed play. Suddenly, Obama's own voice filled the room. But these weren't the words anyone expected to hear. "We are a generous and welcoming people here in the United States," came Obama's voice from 2005, crystal clear through the sound system. "But those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law, and they are showing disregard for those who are following the law." The room fell completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Obama's face immediately changed. The confident presidential demeanor cracked like broken glass, replaced by visible shock and growing embarrassment. Anderson Cooper's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. Several journalists in the front row leaned forward, straining to process what they were hearing. Trump wasn't finished. He pressed play again, his finger moving with theatrical precision. "We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked," Obama's 2005 voice continued with striking authority, "and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this country." A journalist in the front row gasped audibly. Obama's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. His hands, which had been gesturing confidently moments earlier, now gripped the podium edge with visible tension. The color was draining from his face in real time. "There's more," Trump announced, clearly enjoying every second of Obama's visible discomfort. "Much more." Another clip began playing, this one from a 2006 Senate floor speech. Obama's younger voice rang out with passionate conviction. "Those who enter our country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law," Obama's voice declared with striking clarity. "And because we live in an age where terrorists are challenging our borders, we simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, and unchecked." The contrast was absolutely devastating. Here was Obama in 2005 to 2006, using almost identical language to Trump's current policies, language he had just condemned as cruel and divisive minutes earlier. The hypocrisy was so blatant, so undeniable, that even Obama's supporters in the audience looked uncomfortable. Trump pulled out a thick folder of printed transcripts and official documents. These aren't taken out of context, Barack. These are full speeches, Senate floor statements, your immigration platform when you ran for Senate. He held up document after document. Here's your 2005 speech to the Chicago Council on Foreign Relations. Here's your 2006 floor statement supporting the Secure Fence Act. Here's your vote record on border security. Obama finally found his voice, but it came out as a stammer. The context was different. Times change. The political landscape. Times change? Trump interrupted, his voice rising with controlled indignation. Or do principles change when it's politically convenient? You just spent 7 minutes telling America that my immigration policies are immoral. These are your exact words, Barack, your exact positions. Trump's preparation was methodical and devastating. He pulled out more documents, holding them up for the cameras to capture. Border security, deportation of criminal immigrants, following immigration law, you championed these exact same positions that you now call cruel. The journalists began frantically taking notes as they realized they were witnessing a complete destruction of Obama's credibility in real time. Anderson Cooper attempted to intervene, but Trump continued his systematic dismantling. Let's talk about your actual record, not your speeches, Trump continued, consulting his notes with clinical precision. You deported more immigrants in your first 4 years than any president in American history, 2.5 million people. Your administration built the detention facilities at the border that you now blame me for using. Trump pulled out official DHS statistics, reading directly from government documents. Your administration separated families too when criminal activity was suspected. Operation Streamline continued under your watch. You expanded the use of expedited removal. Obama's face was now visibly flushed, his legendary composure completely shattered. He kept looking toward his staff off camera, his eyes pleading for help or an escape route. His communications director was frantically typing on her phone. The Secure Communities program expanded under your administration, Trump pressed on relentlessly. Local law enforcement cooperation with ICE increased. You built 700 miles of border barriers. Your own Homeland Security Secretary called the border situation a humanitarian crisis. A Georgetown student in the audience called out, "Is this true, Mr. President Obama?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Obama turned toward the voice, his expression showing complete defeat and confusion. The circumstances were... Obama stumbled over his words, unable to form a coherent defense. The man who had once commanded global respect with his oratory skills, who had delivered speeches that moved millions, couldn't string together a sentence. Trump sensed the kill and moved in for the final blow. The only difference between us, Barack, is honesty. I campaigned on border security and delivered it. You campaigned on comprehensive immigration reform and delivered deportations. Then you stood here today and called me cruel for implementing policies you pioneered. The room erupted in whispers and shocked murmurs. Journalists were already typing on their phones and laptops, knowing this moment would dominate news cycles for weeks. Trump's voice carried across the stunned silence. You talked about sorting through the system, Barack. That's exactly what I did. You talked about not opening the borders. That's exactly what I prevented. So when you call my approach cruel, you're calling your own presidency cruel. Obama stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His face was red with embarrassment and barely contained anger. I don't have to sit here and listen to this misrepresentation, he said, his voice shaking with humiliation. But Trump wasn't finished. He remained seated, calm and collected, holding all the cards. Misrepresentation? These are your words, Barack. Your policies, your deportation numbers, your border barriers. The American people can judge for themselves who's telling the truth. Trump gestured toward the documents spread across his podium. Every quote is sourced. Every statistic is from your own administration's reports. Every policy position is from your own campaign materials. Without another word, Obama walked off the stage, his legendary composure in complete ruins. The cameras followed his humiliating exit as he pushed past his speechwriting team and disappeared through the side door, leaving his microphone still hot on the podium. Trump remained at his podium, calmly collecting his materials while the audience sat in stunned silence. Truth has a way of catching up, he said to the room full of journalists. Politicians can reinvent themselves, but the record is the record. Anderson Cooper, visibly shaken by what had just transpired, attempted to restore order. We'll take a commercial break, he announced, his professional composure barely intact. Within 30 minutes, #Obama hypocrisy was trending worldwide. Twitter exploded with side-by-side video comparisons of Obama's 2005 speeches and his current statements. News outlets began playing the audio clips alongside Obama's moral lecture, creating devastating split-screen comparisons that made the hypocrisy undeniable. Political analysts across the spectrum called it the most complete public dismantling of a former president's credibility in modern American history. Conservative outlets celebrated Trump's methodical destruction of Obama's moral authority. Even liberal commentators struggled to defend the obvious contradiction. Obama's staff issued no statements for 48 hours. His scheduled appearance on The View was canceled. His upcoming book tour events were postponed indefinitely. Trump had proven that in politics, your own words become your greatest enemy when someone comes prepared with receipts and the patience to use them devastatingly.